Okay, topic 2. When you do market research, whether you do primary or secondary research, you're going to get some results. And that results are what we call the data. Now, there are two types of data, qualitative and quantitative. Now, it sounds a nightmare. These aren't words we often use, and it's easy to get them confused. But it's very important that you don't, because get beyond the awful words, and actually the topic itself is pretty straightforward. So, quantitative data is about quantities. It's about numbers. It's collecting data that you can measure and you can write it down in a numerical value. So an example of some quantitative data. We've got a student here called Andrew. He's targeted to get a grade 6, and we've got some percentages and grades, and it's good. We can see Andrew's progress over time and how he's getting better. Fantastic. But Andrew is a human being, and there's more to Andrew than just numbers and grades. So if we jump over to this style of report, you see it's very different. And that's because it's full of qualitative data. It's full of information about qualities, opinions, and views. And it's literature, isn't it? Qualiterature. So qualitative. And it tells us things that you just can't measure in numbers. It tells Andrew's conscientious, he's hardworking, that the teacher thinks he should become the subject prefect. He's always got a positive attitude. You can't say that in a number, but these are all really important things about this particular boy. So quantitative is numerical, qualitative is literature, it's views, it's qualities, and it's about opinions. Okay, now you need to know arguments for and against each of these types of data because they've both got strengths and weaknesses. So when we're talking about quantities, numbers, they're great because you can analyze numbers. Look at the graph over here. You can compare how the numbers change over time. So maybe you've got an excellent reputation in January, and it's even better in February, and then it's fantastic in March. But something goes wrong in April, and it falls down. Numbers allow you to compare these things. When you're gathering quantitative data, because you're gathering numbers, they tend to be simpler questions. How much would you pay? £10, £12, 15, multi-choice. Or would you like blue, green, or yellow in your t-shirt? And therefore, because you're boiling everything down to a number, it tends to be easier to gather large amounts of information. And the bigger your sample size is, the more believable and trustworthy it is as well. But just like we saw in the previous slide there, not everything can be explained by a number. We couldn't say that with Andrew he's hard and he should be a subject prefect, and that's somehow explainable. That's a number. That's not true. Numbers can't tell you how customers feel or why they feel a certain way. And numbers tend to oversimplify things as well. Maybe in your questionnaire you've given 4 choices, but actually the customer has their own opinion, their own views, and they didn't have a box to tick there. So there's pros and cons to both of these options. Qualitative data, when you're really trying to understand what customers think, tell me, why do you feel that way? It provides rich, detailed information where the customer can really unpack and explain why they feel this certain way, why they want what they want. Views, opinions, perceptions, they can really kind of be considered and thought through. And it's great for situations where you want a detailed understanding from the customer. But because it's more complex and it's more detailed, it's really hard to generalize, and it can be quite subjective, because if you imagine I'm doing lots of detailed interviews here, perhaps, or lots of why questions in my survey, in my questionnaire, and therefore I've got lots of written paragraphs and written sentences. I've got to try and condense that down. That's hard going, That's going to take me a lot of time. So businesses sometimes, if they're going to use qualitative data, will ask a smaller number of people. And the danger there, of course, is that your sample size might not be big enough for you to trust it. Okay, now as much as you need to know the pros and cons of each of those two types of data, the exam will almost certainly ask you to recommend which is most appropriate. And that's the key thing, okay? So let's have a look. This guy here, he's going to open a new restaurant in Ponteland. He's heard about lots of competition and he wants to find out about people's opinions on those restaurants before it opens. Well, he wants people's opinions. So that's going to be qualitative. What do you like about those restaurants? What do you not like? What would you like my restaurant to do? How could I be better than their restaurants? This person here, she works for the Odeon. She's been asked to carry out some market research into the types of movie people like. She needs to choose some types of data that will allow her to write a report that includes tables and graphs. Well, if you want tables and graphs, something like this, then it's going to have to be quantitative data, isn't it? Numeric values all the way. Next one, you've got this guy here. He's in a rush somewhere. He's got a client. He's planning on launching a summer clothing range, and he wants to know what we think next year's fashions ought to be. And the client wants to have some information about the size of the market, trends in the market, but they also want feedback on the views of customers that have been trialing the future products. Okay, well, size of the market, trends in the market, that's quantitative, that's numbers, isn't it? That's graphs. Detailed feedback on the views and opinions of customers, well, that's qualitative. So to please this client, he's going to have to do both. Last one here. I don't know who this evil looking fellow is, but last year he built 10 different types of properties in his company, and he's demanding that we give him some sales figures from the top 3 selling homes. So, okay, he wants this information fast. Good luck. Good news for us, though. We only need to give him some numbers, some facts and figures. So he needs quantitative. All right. So quantitative, numbers, qualitative, views and opinions. Don't confuse them. Know the pros and cons. Be ready to give your recommendation. And the secret letter for this video is R.